Daeho wiped the sweat from his face as he stared at the broken engine of his cargo ship. The small transport vessel that had been his home for 3 years was now making strange noises and leaking blue coolant all over the metal floor. He kicked the side panel in frustration and immediately regretted it when pain shot through his toe. The young Korean man had been hauling basic supplies between human colonies for most of his adult life. It was boring work, but it paid enough to keep him fed and his ship running. Most days he would load boxes of food, medicine, or tools onto his ship, fly to another planet, unload everything, and then find a new cargo to haul somewhere else. But today, everything had gone wrong. His navigation computer had started showing error messages 3 hours ago. Then the engine began making grinding sounds like someone was torturing metal animals. Finally, the whole ship shuddered and dropped out of hyperspace in the middle of nowhere. Well, not exactly nowhere. According to his star charts, he was near the Cathara system, which was known for having rough spaceports and even rougher people. Most honest traders avoided this area, but Daeho did not have much choice. His ship was dying, and he needed help fast. The Ba Sea, desert planet below, looked like a giant ball of sand and rock, but his sensors detected a large settlement with what looked like a spaceport. Perfect. He could land there, find a mechanic, and hopefully get back to hauling cargo before his food supplies ran out as his ship descended through the thin atmosphere. Daeho got a better look at the settlement. It was much bigger than he expected, with hundreds of different spacecraft parked around a central hub. Most of the ships looked military, but not from any government he recognized. These were private vessels, mercenary ships belonging to fighters who sold their services to whoever paid them best. Great Daeho thought mercenaries were usually bad news for simple cargo haulers like himself. They tended to shoot first and ask questions later, but he had no choice. His ship needed repairs, and this was the only spaceport for several light years. The landing went smoothly enough, and Daeho powered down his engines with relief. At least his ship could still fly, even if it sounded like it was going to explode any minute. He grabbed his toolkit and some emergency credits, then opened the cargo bay door. The hot desert air hit him like a wall of fire. Even though it was late afternoon, the temperature had to be over 40 degrees. The spaceport was bustling with activity as crews loaded weapons, ammunition, and supplies onto various ships. Daeho had never seen so many different alien species in one place. Tall, blue-skinned warriors with 4 arms were arguing with short, furry creatures that looked like angry teddy bears. A group of reptilian beings with scales instead of skin were examining some kind of energy weapon while making hissing sounds that might have been laughter. Most of the aliens ignored him completely. Humans were common enough in this part of space that he did not attract much attention. He was just another trader looking for parts and repairs. The main marketplace was a maze of temporary structures made from metal, sheets, and canvas. Half the vendors were selling ship parts, while the other half sold weapons ranging from simple laser pistols to devices that Daeho could not even identify. The air smelled of engine oil, alien food, and something that reminded him of burning plastic. After an hour of searching, Daeho finally found a Vorthan mechanic who claimed he could fix human ships. The alien looked like a giant insect with too many eyes, but he spoke reasonable Korean through a translation device. Unfortunately, the Vorthan wanted twice what Daeho could afford for a simple engine repair. Plus, the parts would not arrive for 3 days. That meant Daeho would be stuck on this desert planet with mercenaries and weapons dealers for almost a week. He wandered around the settlement looking for cheaper alternatives or maybe someone willing to trade services. As the day grew later, most of the vendors began closing their stalls. The mercenaries retreated to their camps, which were set up in a rough circle around the main spaceport. Daeho was heading back to his ship when he took a wrong turn between 2 large military tents. The area was quieter here, with fewer people walking around. He could hear voices speaking in various alien languages, but could not understand what they were saying. That was when he noticed something strange. One of the tents had a small tear in the back wall, probably caused by the strong desert winds. The fabric flapped gently, revealing a glimpse of the interior. Dae-ho knew he should keep walking. Mind your own business had always been his rule when dealing with mercenaries. But curiosity got the better of him. He crept closer to the tear and peeked inside. What he saw made his breath catch in his throat. A woman was removing pieces of combat armor from her body. She was tall, maybe 6 feet, with broad shoulders and muscles that spoke of years spent in battle. Her hair was black and cut short in a practical military style. But what made Dae-ho stare was not her impressive physique. Her skin had a metallic blue tint that shifted and shimmered in the tent light. Her eyes glowed like amber stars, casting golden light across her face. She was clearly not human, though she looked more human than most aliens. Dae-ho had encountered as she removed more armor. Dae-ho could see strange wounds covering her arms and shoulders. They looked like burns from energy weapons, but instead of scars, they seemed to be healing right before his eyes. The damaged skin was knitting, itself back together, leaving only faint lines that faded within seconds. The woman had some kind of advanced medical technology built into her body. Dae-ho had heard rumors of such things. Experimental treatments that could make soldiers nearly immortal in battle. But he had never seen it with his own eyes. She reached for a device on a nearby table, something that looked like a medical scanner mixed with alien technology. Dae-ho leaned forward, trying to get a better look at the strange equipment. His foot shifted and came down on a piece of broken metal. The sound was small, just a tiny crunch, but in the quiet evening it might as well have been a gunshot. The woman spun around faster than any human could move. Her hand was already reaching for a plasma pistol holstered at her side. Her glowing amber eyes locked onto the tear in the tent wall exactly where Dae-ho was hiding. "Come out, little spy," she said in perfect Korean, which shocked Dae-ho almost as much as her appearance. "I can smell your fear from here." Dae-ho felt his heart hammering against his ribs. He considered running, but something told him that would be a very bad idea. This woman looked like she could catch him before he made it 10 steps, plus running would definitely make him look guilty of something. Slowly, he stepped around the tent and into the open area behind it. His hands were raised to show he was not carrying any weapons. The woman studied him with those strange, glowing eyes. Her hand remained near her. Pistol, but she did not draw it. "You are human," she said. It was not a question. "What is your name?" "Dae-ho," he managed to say. His voice came out as barely more than a whisper. "I am just a cargo hauler. My ship broke down and I was looking for a mechanic. I did not mean to spy on you. I just got lost." The woman tilted her head like she was trying to decide whether to believe him. Most aliens Dae-ho had met would either kill him immediately or dismiss him as harmless, but this woman seemed genuinely curious about his reaction. "You saw my wounds healing," she said. "Most humans would be running and screaming by now, or they would be trying to steal my medical technology. But you look fascinated, not frightened." Why, Dae-ho realized she was right. He was not afraid of her strange appearance or impossible healing abilities. Instead, he found himself wondering how the technology worked and whether it caused her any pain. "I guess I have always been curious about things I do not understand." He said honestly, "My parents used to say it would get me in trouble someday." The woman almost smiled at that. Her grip on the pistol relaxed slightly. "They were right," she said. "Come with me. We need to talk." Over the next 3 days, Dae-ho learned more about alien warfare than he had ever wanted to know. Bo-Ram became his teacher, showing him captured Voss technology and explaining how their hive mind species operated. The giant mantis alien was surprisingly patient even when Dae-ho asked what seemed like stupid questions. The Voss conquered their first planet over 2,000 years ago, Bo-Ram explained, while they examined a broken piece of enemy communication equipment. Since then, they have destroyed 43 different civilizations. Some species tried to fight, some tried to negotiate, some tried to hide. None of it worked. Deho studied the alien device. It looked like a cross between a radio and some kind of organic brain with wires growing out of it like electronic veins. How does their hive mind actually work? Every Voss soldier has an implant in their skull. Boram said, the implant connects them to a central consciousness that makes all decisions individual Voss cannot think. Independently, they receive orders directly into their brains and obey without question. That sounds horrible, Deho said. What happens if the connection breaks? Excellent question. Most Voss soldiers become confused and helpless without guidance from the hive mind. A few can function independently, but they are usually eliminated by their own people for being defective. Boram showed him recordings of previous Voss battles. The enemy moved like a single organism flowing around obstacles and coordinating attacks with perfect precision. Their ships fired in synchronized volleys that could overwhelm any defense. But Deho noticed something else about the recordings. They always attacked the same way, he said. Same formations, same tactics. Why do they not change their strategy? Because it works, Boram replied. The Voss have never lost a major battle. Why would they change tactics that have been successful for centuries? But that makes them predictable, Deho argued. If they always do the same thing, you should be able to plan countermeasures. Boram made a sound that might have been laughter. Many species have tried that approach. They studied Voss tactics, developed counter-strategies, and prepared elaborate defenses. The Voss simply overwhelmed them with superior numbers and firepower. While Deho was learning about the enemy, Nari was training her mercenary forces. The camp had become a constant buzz of activity as warriors from different species practiced working. Together, Deho watched the training sessions whenever he had free time. He was fascinated by how Nari managed to coordinate so many different alien cultures. The bird-like Ket warriors were natural pilots who could fly in three-dimensional formations that made human eyes hurt just watching. The massive Thok soldiers served as heavy infantry carrying weapons that could punch through starship armor. Their thick hides could absorb enormous amounts of damage, making them perfect for frontal assaults. Group of lizard-like aliens called the Shen specialized in stealth and infiltration. They could change their skin color to match their surroundings, becoming nearly invisible in the right conditions. The strangest members of Nari forces were the void-touched beings who had been exposed to dark matter radiation. Their bodies were partially transparent, and they could phase in and out of normal reality. It was unsettling to watch them practice combat moves that allowed them to walk through walls. How do you keep them all working together? Deho asked Nari during a break between training exercises. They seem so different from each other. Nari was cleaning her weapons, a ritual she performed every evening. Her plasma rifle was a work of art covered in alien symbols and modifications that she had added over the years. Every species has strengths and weaknesses, she explained. The Ket are excellent pilots but terrible at close combat. The Thok are nearly indestructible, but they move slowly. The trick is using each group where they will be most effective. She reassembled her rifle with practiced efficiency. But the real secret is earning their respect. These warriors have fought alongside me for years. They know I will not waste their lives on impossible missions. What about the void-touched? Deho asked. They give me nightmares. Nari actually smiled at that. They should. The void-touched are what happens when you survive direct exposure to the space between dimensions. Most people die instantly, but a few are changed instead. They exist partially outside normal reality. That sounds like it would be useful in battle. Very useful. They can scout enemy positions without being detected, and they can pass through shields and armor. But the cost is terrible. They are slowly fading from existence. Every day, they become a little less real. Dae-ho felt a chill run down his spine. How long do they have? Maybe 5 years. Maybe 10. It depends on how much they use their abilities. Each time they phase through something, they lose a little more of themselves. That evening, while Bo-Ram was showing him more Voss technology, Dae-ho made a disturbing discovery. The alien communication device they had been studying contained recent transmissions from the invasion fleet. Can you translate these messages? He asked. Bo-Ram attached the device to her computer and ran the alien text through translation software. After a few minutes, she made a sound of alarm. "This is very bad news," she said. "The Voss have changed their invasion timeline. They will arrive in 3 days, not 6. Dae-ho felt his heart sink. "That does not give us much time to prepare." "It gets worse." Bo-Ram continued reading the translated messages. "They are not just planning to harvest human colonies, they intend to use this sector as a staging area for a much larger invasion. The Voss want to conquer the entire galactic arm. How many ships are we talking about? According to these messages, over 10,000 warships. The fleet heading here is just the advance force." Dae-ho stared at the numbers on the screen. 10,000 ships meant billions of Voss soldiers, enough to overwhelm every defense in human space. They would strip entire star systems bare, leaving nothing but empty husks behind. "We have to warn the human governments," he said. "They need to evacuate the colonies." "There is no time," Bo-Ram replied. "Even if we sent a message right now, it would take days to reach human space. By then, the Voss would already be attacking." Dae-ho felt helpless, trapped between impossible choices. If Nari's plan failed, the Voss would destroy everything he had ever known. But even if they somehow won this battle, it would only delay the inevitable. The main Voss fleet would arrive eventually. That night, he found Nari standing outside her tent, looking up at the stars. The desert had grown cold after sunset, and her breath formed small clouds in the air. "Bo-Ram told you about the timeline change," she said without turning around. "Yes. How did you know?" "You have that same look my warriors get when they realize they might die tomorrow." Nari finally faced him. "Are you having second thoughts about helping us?" Dae-ho considered the question honestly. "I am terrified," he admitted. "A week ago, my biggest worry was whether I had enough fuel to reach the next planet. Now I am planning to fight an invasion fleet." "Fear is normal," Nari said. "Only stupid people are not afraid before battle. The question is what you do with that fear." She pointed toward a cluster of bright stars. "My home planet is somewhere out there. The Voss destroyed it when I was 12 years old. I watched from an escape pod as they stripped away the atmosphere and turned my world into a dead rock. I am sorry," Dae-ho said. "I did not know." The other survivors scattered across the galaxy, trying to forget what happened. But I remembered I spent 20 years learning to fight, collecting allies, planning my revenge. Her amber eyes glowed brighter. "This battle is not just about protecting human colonies, it is about stopping the Voss before they destroy another world." Dae-ho understood then why the other mercenaries followed her. She was not just fighting for money or glory. She was fighting to prevent other children from watching their homes die. "What do you need me to do?" he asked. Nari smiled, the same expression he had seen when she first decided he might be useful. "Tomorrow you and Bo-Ram will modify your cargo ship. We are going to use it as a Trojan horse to get close to the Voss command vessels. My ship is not exactly built for combat. That is why it will work," Nari replied. "The Voss will see a simple cargo hauler and dismiss it as harmless. By the time they realize their mistake, it will be too late." As they walked back toward the camp, Dae-ho realized that his old life was truly over. He would never again be just a simple trader hauling boxes between planets. The war had found him and changed him into something he did not recognize yet, but maybe that was not such a bad thing. The next morning brought alarming news from the long-range scanners. The Voss invasion fleet had been detected at the edge of the system, moving faster than anyone had expected. They would arrive in less than 48 hours. Nari called an emergency, meeting in the command tent. All her lieutenants gathered around the holographic display showing the approaching enemy fleet. The numbers were even worse than they had feared. 350 warships, each one twice the size of anything. In the mercenary forces, a direct space battle is now impossible, announced Kren, the massive Thok warrior who served as Nari's second-in-command. They have too many ships and too much firepower. We would be destroyed in minutes, the bird-like Ket. Commander Zira flapped her metallic wings in agitation. Perhaps we should retreat and warn the human colonies. At least some people could be evacuated. No, Nari said firmly. If we run now, the Voss will establish a foothold in this sector within a year. They will have built supply bases and called in reinforcements. This is our only chance to stop them. Daeho had been quiet during the meeting, but now he cleared his throat nervously. What if we let them land on the planet? The tent fell, silent. Every alien face turned to stare at the human. Explain. Nari said, the Voss expect us to meet them in space, right? That is how every other species has fought them. But what if we hide our ships and let them think this planet is undefended? They will land their forces and set up a base camp. Boram made clicking sounds of interest. Their ships would be vulnerable while landed. The crews would be distracted with unloading equipment and establishing defensive positions. It is suicide. Kren rumbled, landing ships are sitting targets for orbital bombardment. The moment we reveal our position, they will destroy us from space. Not if we attack their command ships first. Daeho said, the plan forming in his mind as he spoke. The Voss use centralized command structures. If we can disable their flagship, the other ships will be confused and disorganized. Zira cocked her head to one side. How would we get close enough to attack their flagship? It will be heavily guarded. With my cargo ship, Daeho replied. Boram and I have been working on modifications. We can make it look like a damaged refugee vessel. The Voss will either ignore it completely or bring it aboard to interrogate the crew. That assumes they take prisoners. Kren pointed out, the Voss are not known for their mercy. Nari had been studying the tactical display while the others argued. Now she looked up with a predatory smile. It could work. The Voss have never faced this kind of strategy before. They will not be prepared for ground-based attacks on their landing sites. She began highlighting sections of the planet's surface on the hologram. We position our forces in the canyon networks here and here. The rock formations will protect us from orbital. Scans when the Voss land, we hit them fast and hard while Daeho attacks their flagship. What about their fighter escort? Zira asked. Even if we disable the flagship, the smaller ships can still attack us. That is where you come in, Nari told the Ket commander. Your pilots will launch a diversionary attack from the opposite side of the planet. Draw the fighters away from the landing zone. Boram projected technical specifications onto the display. I have been analyzing Voss ship designs. Their flagships use massive power cores to run all their systems. If we can overload those cores, the resulting explosion will destroy several ships. How do we overload a Voss power core? Daeho asked. The mantis alien made what might have been a smile. With these. She produced a case filled with small crystalline devices. Quantum destabilizers. Each one can create a cascade failure in any energy system. How many ships will that destroy? Nari wanted to know. Depends on how close they are. Parked together. If we are lucky, maybe 50 ships. If we are unlucky, maybe 10. Even 10 ships would be a significant victory, but Daeho knew it would not be enough. The remaining Voss fleet would still vastly outnumber the mercenary forces. There is something else, he said slowly. If we can really disrupt their hive mind communications, the Voss soldiers might turn on each other. Explain. Nari commanded. Boram told me that individual Voss cannot think independently without the hive mind. What if losing their flagship does not just cut their communications? What if it drives them insane? Boram made excited clicking sounds. Psychological warfare. The Voss mind is not designed to function alone. Sudden isolation from the hive could cause mental breakdown, panic, even violent behavior. They might start fighting anything that moves, including their own people, Zira added, understanding the implications. Nari nodded approvingly. Chaos and confusion. Our specialties. But this plan requires perfect timing. If even one part fails, we all die. I will go with Daeho, she continued, surprising everyone in the tent. Someone needs to make sure the quantum destabilizers are placed correctly. That is not necessary, Daeho protested. I can handle the technical work. No, you cannot, Nari replied bluntly. You are a cargo hauler, not a saboteur. If something goes wrong, you will not know how to improvise. I will. Kren made a sound of disapproval. You are needed here to coordinate. The ground assault. You can handle the ground forces, Nari told him. This infiltration mission is more important. If we fail to destroy the flagship, nothing else matters. She turned back to Daeho. Your cargo ship will need serious modifications. To fool Voss sensors, can Boram make the changes in time? I have already started, the Mantis alien replied. The hull will be scarred to look like battle damage. The engine signature will be altered to match human refugee vessels, and I am installing a small cloaking device that should hide our weapon systems. What weapons? Daeho asked. My ship was never designed for combat. Boram produced another device from her seemingly endless supply of alien technology. Plasma charges designed to attach to starship hulls. They will burn through armor plating in seconds. Once we plant the quantum destabilizers, we can fight our way out. Assuming we survive long enough, Daeho muttered. That is the spirit, Nari said with dark humor. Now let me explain exactly how we are going to infiltrate the most dangerous warship in the Voss fleet. She activated a detailed schematic of a Voss flagship showing the internal layout and defensive systems. These ships are over 2 kilometers long with crews of 50,000. The command center is located here in the heavily armored core section. How do we get from the docking bay to the command center without being detected? Daeho asked. We do not try to hide, Nari explained. We pretend to be prisoners. Being escorted by Voss guards, I have captured Voss uniforms and equipment from previous battles. With the right disguises, we can walk through their ship openly. What about the hive mind connection? Daeho pointed out. Will not the real Voss soldiers know we are fake? Not if we stay away from direct contact, Boram answered. The hive mind shares thoughts and emotions, but it does not provide detailed visual information about every individual. As long as we act like we belong there, the other, Voss, will ignore us. Nari stood up and looked around the tent at her assembled commanders. This is our plan. We let the Voss land on the planet, then hit them with everything we have. The ground forces will attack their base camps while Daeho and I destroy their flagship. And if the plan fails, Zira asked, then we die fighting. Nari replied simply, but we will take as many of them with us as possible. The meeting broke up as the various commanders went to prepare their forces. Daeho found himself alone with Nari and Boram. Are you sure about this? He asked. There has to be a better way. Nari looked at him with those glowing amber eyes. There is no better way. The Voss have conquered 43 civilizations using the same tactics. Every species that tried to fight them conventionally lost. The only chance we have is to do something so crazy they will not see it coming. But why me? Daeho said. You could find another pilot, someone with actual military experience. Because you think like a human, Nari replied, and right now that is exactly what we need. Boram finished her modifications to Daeho's ship just as the Voss fleet entered the outer system. The enemy vessels were massive dark shapes that blotted out the stars as they moved toward the planet. "Time to go," Nari said, loading her equipment into the cargo hold. "In 6 hours, we will either be heroes or dead. I vote for heroes," Deho said, starting the engine. "Then let us make it happen," Nari replied. The Voss invasion fleet descended toward the planet like a swarm of metal locusts. Each ship was a nightmare of black armor and glowing weapon ports. The largest vessels were over 3 kilometers long, casting shadows that turned day into night. Across the desert surface, Deho watched from his hiding position in the canyon as the enemy fleet began landing operations. Hundreds of smaller ships ferried troops and equipment between the massive flagships and the planet's surface. The Voss were setting up their base camp exactly where Nari had predicted. "They are following standard invasion protocols," Boram reported through the communication system. "Command ships in the center support vessels in defensive positions around the perimeter." "Perfect," Nari replied from the co-pilot seat of Deho cargo ship. "That puts their flagship right where we need it to be." The plan required precise timing. They had to wait until the Voss were fully committed to the landing operation but attack before their defenses were completely established. It was like threading a needle while riding a roller coaster. Deho activated the modifications Boram had made to his ship. The hull plating shifted and scarred itself to look like battle damage. The engine signature changed to match that of a refugee vessel fleeing from combat. The small cloaking device hid their weapons and the quantum destabilizers, remember? Nari said as they lifted off from their concealed position. "We are survivors from a human colony ship that was attacked by pirates. We are requesting emergency assistance and medical aid." "What if they just shoot us?" Deho asked. "Then we die quickly instead of slowly," Nari replied with dark humor. "But the Voss usually interrogate prisoners. Before killing them, they will want to know about human defenses and fleet positions." The cargo ship limped toward the Voss fleet, broadcasting distress signals on standard emergency frequencies. Deho tried to make his voice sound panicked and desperate as he transmitted their cover story. "This is cargo vessel Rising Sun, requesting emergency assistance," he called. "We have wounded civilians aboard, and our life support is failing. Please respond." For several terrifying minutes there was no answer. Deho began to think the Voss would simply ignore them or blast them out of the sky. Then a harsh alien voice responded in broken Korean. "Human vessel, you will follow designated flight path to docking bay 7. Any deviation will result in your destruction." A holographic display appeared showing the route they were supposed to take. It led directly to the belly of the largest Voss flagship, exactly where they wanted to go. "It is working," Nari whispered. "They are taking the bait," as they flew closer to the massive enemy ship. Deho got his first good look at Voss architecture. The hull was covered in organic-looking growths that pulsed with sickly light. Weapon ports opened and closed like hungry mouths. The whole thing looked more like a living creature than a machine. The docking bay was enormous enough to hold dozens of ships like theirs. Mechanical arms reached out to guide their vessel to a landing platform, while armed Voss soldiers took positions around the bay. "Here we go," Nari said. Putting on her disguise, Boram had done an incredible job creating fake Voss uniforms. The armor looked exactly like the real thing, complete with the neural interface cables that connected to the hive mind. Of course, their interfaces were not actually connected to anything, but hopefully the Voss would not notice. The cargo bay door opened, and Deho got his first look at living Voss soldiers. They were humanoid in basic shape, but wrong in every detail. Their skin was gray and metallic. Their eyes were solid black, and they moved with the perfect coordination of a hive mind. 2 Voss guards boarded the ship while others remained outside covering the entrance. One of them spoke in harsh alien language that the translation Device rendered as, "You will come with us for interrogation." Nari and Deho allowed themselves to be escorted off the ship and through the docking bay. The interior of the Voss flagship was even more disturbing than the outside walls pulsed with. Organic machinery cables hung from the ceiling like vines, and the air smelled of metal and decay. The corridors were filled with Voss soldiers moving in perfect formation. They paid no attention to the prisoners being escorted past them. The hive mind had already processed their presence and dismissed them as unimportant. "So far, so good," Nari whispered in Korean, hoping their guards did not understand the language. They were taken deeper into the ship, past weapons storage areas and troop quarters. The Voss architecture made no concessions to comfort or aesthetics. Everything was designed purely for function. Efficiency was the only consideration. After what felt like hours of walking, they reached a security checkpoint. 2 more guards joined their escort, and they were scanned by some kind of alien device. Dae-ho held his breath, wondering if their disguises would hold up under close examination. The scanner beeped once, and they were waved through. The Voss guards were completely fooled by Boram masterwork. Finally, they reached their destination, a large chamber near the center of the ship filled with interrogation equipment. The walls were covered in devices that Dae-ho preferred not to think about too closely. "Wait here," one of the guards said in broken Korean. "Commander will question you soon." The Voss soldiers left them alone in the chamber, but Dae-ho knew they were being watched. Security cameras tracked their every movement, and he could hear guards stationed outside. "The door. Now what?" he whispered to Nari. "Now we wait for the right moment," she replied. "The interrogation will take place in the command center where the ship officers can observe. They will want to make sure we are telling the truth about human defenses." "How do you know all this?" "Because I have been captured by the Voss before," Nari said quietly. 3 years ago, on a mission that went wrong, I spent 2 weeks in one of their prison ships before my team rescued me. That explained a lot about her knowledge of Voss procedures and psychology. She had experienced their methods firsthand. An hour later, the guards returned to escort them to the command center. This was the heart of the Voss flagship, a massive chamber filled with holographic displays showing the progress of the invasion. The ship officers were arranged in concentric circles around a central command platform. At the center stood the Voss fleet commander, a creature even more imposing than the regular soldiers. It was over 7 feet tall with additional cybernetic implants covering its skull. The neural interface cables connected to its brain were thicker and more numerous than those of lesser Voss human prisoners. The commander said in perfect Korean, "You will answer questions about your species' military capabilities." Dae-ho forced himself to look frightened and confused. "We are just civilians," he said. "We do not know anything about military secrets." "All humans know something useful," the commander replied. "Your species does not follow proper hierarchy. Every individual has access to information that should be restricted." The interrogation began with basic questions about human colonies, fleet movements, and defensive systems. Dae-ho gave answers that sounded plausible but contained nothing the Voss could not already know. Meanwhile, Nari was studying the command center layout, identifying the locations of critical systems. After 20 minutes of questioning, the fleet commander seemed satisfied. With their responses, the prisoners were clearly harmless refugees with no useful intelligence. He ordered them taken to the detention levels to await processing. But as the guards moved to escort them away, Nari made her move. She spun around and drove a concealed plasma blade into the nearest guard neck. The Voss soldier collapsed without making a sound. Dae-ho grabbed the creature weapon and fired at the security cameras while Nari threw quantum destabilizers at the main computer terminal's alarms. Began wailing throughout the ship, but it was too late. The destabilizers were already beginning their work overloading the flagship power systems with cascading energy feedback. "The central core is 3 levels down," Nari shouted over the alarm. Sounds, "We have to plant the main charges there." They fought their way through corridors filled with confused Voss soldiers. The hive mind was trying to coordinate a response, but the quantum interference was disrupting their communication network. Individual soldiers were beginning to act independently, some of them attacking their own comrades in confusion. The ship power grid was failing, causing lights to flicker and gravity to fluctuate randomly. Daeho found himself floating in midair. One moment and slammed against the floor the next. It was like fighting inside a broken carnival ride. Finally, they reached the central power core, a massive chamber filled with machinery that hurt to look at directly. The energy conduits pulsed with power that made Daeho's teeth ache and his vision blur. There. Nari pointed to the main power coupling a structure the size of a small building. Plant the charges around the base while I cover you. Daeho ran toward the power coupling while Nari held off the Voss soldiers trying to stop them. Her plasma rifle cut through enemy armor like paper, but more soldiers kept coming. The quantum destabilizers had driven some of them insane, but others were still following basic combat PR. The woman grabbed Daeho by the collar of his work shirt and dragged him toward the front of her tent. He stumbled, trying to keep up with her long strides. Her grip was incredibly strong, much stronger than any human woman should have been. Wait, Daeho said. I really am just a cargo hauler. I do not want any trouble. Too late for that, the woman replied. You have already seen too much. She pulled him through the tent entrance, and Daeho found himself in what looked like a military command center. Holographic displays showed star maps with red and blue dots marking ship positions. Battle plans covered a large table in the center, and weapons were mounted on racks along the walls. But what really caught Daeho's attention were the other occupants of the tent. A dozen aliens from various species were gathered around the table, all wearing combat gear. They stopped talking when they saw the human. There was a massive creature that looked like a cross between a bear and a rhinoceros. Its thick hide was covered in scars, and it carried a weapon that seemed too big for any normal person to lift. A group of bird-like beings with metallic feathers were examining ammunition clips, their bright yellow eyes reflecting the tent lights near. The back stood something that might have been a robot, except it moved too naturally. Its body was made of some kind of living metal that shifted and flowed like liquid mercury. When it turned to look at Daeho, its face showed expressions almost like curiosity. This little cargo rat saw something he should not have, the woman announced to the group. But maybe he can be useful. One of the bird creatures made a sound like angry chirping. Nari, why do we need a human? They are weak and unreliable. So, her name was Nari Daeho filed that information away for later use. Nari walked over to the holographic display and pointed at a section of space near human territory. Our employers hired us to stop an invasion fleet. The Voss Empire is sending 300 warships to attack human colonies. They want to harvest the planets for resources before moving deeper into this sector. Daeho felt his stomach drop. The Voss were legendary for their cruelty. They did not just conquer planets, they stripped them bare, leaving nothing but dead rocks behind. Entire species had been wiped out by Voss invasion fleets. The problem, Nari continued, is that we are outnumbered 10-1. A direct battle would be suicide. We need every advantage we can get. The bear rhino creature made a rumbling sound that might have been laughter. What advantage could one weak human give us? Nari looked at Daeho with those glowing amber eyes. Humans have a reputation. They do not fight like other species. Most aliens follow ancient battle traditions and predictable patterns. Humans throw out the rule book and do whatever works. They are unpredictable, chaotic, and very hard to plan against. I am not a soldier, Daeho protested. I haul cargo from one planet to another. I have never even fired a weapon in my life. That does not matter, Nari said. I saw something in your eyes. When you looked at my healing wounds, most people would have been afraid or greedy. You were curious. You wanted to understand how it worked. That kind of thinking could be very useful. She gestured to the star maps. The Voss invasion fleet will arrive in this system in 6 days. They expect us to meet them in space following normal tactical doctrine. But what if we did? Something completely unexpected. What if we let them land on the planet's surface and then attacked their command ships while they were vulnerable? The bird creatures started chirping excitedly in their own language, while the bear rhino shook its massive head. That goes against every rule of space warfare, it rumbled. Landing ships are sitting ducks for orbital bombardment. Exactly. Nari smiled. The Voss would never expect such a stupid move, which is why it might work, but we need someone. Who thinks like a human to help plan it? Deho looked around the tent at all the alien faces staring at him. Some looked curious, others seemed annoyed that their meeting had been interrupted by a simple cargo hauler. You have 2 choices, Nari said, her voice becoming serious. Help us stop the Voss from reaching human colonies, or I will leave you here to explain to them why you were spying on their enemy. That was not really a choice at all. The Voss were known for torturing prisoners, for information before killing them. Slowly, Deho had heard stories that made him sick, just thinking about them. What would I have to do? He asked. Nari gestured to one of the aliens near the weapon racks. Boram will explain our technical needs. She has spent years studying human technology and psychology. Boram looked like a giant praying mantis with too many arms. Her green exoskeleton gleamed under the tent lights. When she spoke, her voice came through a translation device that made her sound like a very polite computer human brains. Process information differently than other species, Boram explained. Most aliens think in straight lines following logical pathways from problem to solution, but humans think in spirals and loops. You see connections that we miss entirely. She activated a holographic display showing Voss ship designs. For example, we have been trying to find weaknesses in their fleet formations for months. We can identify their weapon systems, their shield, frequencies, and their communication protocols, but we cannot figure out how to exploit those weaknesses. Deho studied the display. The Voss ships were massive things covered in armor and weapons. They moved in tight formations like schools of fish, each ship protecting the others from attack. They all moved together, he said after a moment, like they are connected somehow. Exactly. Boram replied, The Voss are a hive mind species. They share thoughts and memories through quantum communication. Links, every ship in their fleet receives the same information at the same time. So they all make the same decisions. Deho said slowly. They cannot think independently. That is correct. But how does that help us? Deho stared at the holographic, ships trying to think like a cargo hauler instead of a military strategist. What happens if you disrupt their communications? If they cannot talk to each other, they would have to make individual decisions, right? The tent fell silent as every alien stared at the human. That is, Boram said slowly, actually brilliant. The Voss military doctrine assumes constant communication between all units. If that communication was severed, each ship would fall back on basic programming, but basic programming is much more predictable than hive mind tactics. Nari nodded approvingly. See, I told you human thinking could be useful. The bear rhino creature was still skeptical. How would we disrupt communications across an entire fleet? The Voss use quantum encryption that is supposed to be unbreakable. Maybe we do not break it, Deho said. Maybe we overload it. What if we broadcast so much information on their frequencies that their systems cannot process it all? Boram started making excited clicking. Sounds information warfare instead of direct combat. We flood their communication channels with junk data until their quantum processors crash from overload. Can that work? Nari asked. It would require precise timing and enormous amounts of computing power. Boram replied, But yes, it could work. We would need to coordinate the broadcast from multiple locations to ensure complete coverage. Nari looked at Deho with something that might have been respect. Welcome to the Team Cargo Hauler U. Just gave us our first real chance at victory. Daeho felt a mixture of pride and terror. He had gone from looking for engine parts to planning an attack on the most dangerous alien empire in the galaxy. All because he had been curious about a woman, healing impossible wounds. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now we prepare for war." Nari said, "Boram will teach you everything you need to know about Voss technology. Meanwhile, I will train my people for the most important battle of their lives." She walked over to stand directly in front of Daeho. "But remember, cargo hauler, if you betray us or try to run away, I will hunt you across the galaxy. There is nowhere you can hide from me." Looking into those glowing amber eyes, Daeho believed every word she said. The cargo ship limped through the atmosphere, trailing smoke and sparks from damaged systems. Daeho fought to keep them airborne as warning lights flashed across the control panel and the engine made grinding sounds that promised imminent failure. Hull. "Breach in Cargo Bay 2. Nari reported. "Life support is failing and we are losing altitude fast." Below them, the desert planet looked like a war zone. Smoking craters marked where Voss ships had been destroyed. The remaining enemy forces were scattered across the landscape, fighting confused battles with each other and the mercenary ground forces. There. Daeho pointed toward a relatively clear area near the mercenary base camp. "I can set us down in that canyon if the engine holds together for another 2 minutes." The landing was more of a controlled crash than anything else. The cargo ship hit the rocky ground hard, bounced twice, and finally came to rest against a boulder. The silence after the engine stopped was almost deafening. "Are we alive?" Nari asked. "I think so," Daeho replied, checking himself for injuries. "Though I feel like I got run over by a tank." They stumbled out of the wrecked ship to find Boram and a medical team waiting for them. The mantis alien made excited, clicking sounds when she saw them emerge from the wreckage. "You did it," she said through her translation device. "The Voss fleet is in complete chaos. Without their central command, they cannot coordinate their forces. Most of their ships are already retreating." Kren, the massive Thok warrior, approached with his own report. "Ground forces have secured the enemy base camp. We captured over 300 Voss soldiers and destroyed most of their equipment. The ones we did not capture are fighting each other." "What about casualties?" Nari asked. "Lighter than expected," Kren replied. "The enemy confusion worked in our favor. They spent more time shooting at each other than at us. Over the next few hours, the full scope of their victory became clear. The Voss invasion fleet had been completely routed. Less than 50 ships escaped the system, and those were in no condition to return. The ground forces that had landed were either captured dead or still wandering the desert in confusion. But it was the psychological impact that mattered most. The Voss Empire had never suffered such a complete defeat. Their reputation for invincibility was shattered. News of the battle would spread throughout the galaxy, encouraging other species to resist. "Voss expansion. You realize what this means," Boram said as they sat around a campfire that evening. "The Voss will think twice before attacking human space again. They know now that humans fight differently than other species." Daeho stared into the flames, thinking about everything that had happened. A week ago, he had been a simple cargo hauler, worrying about engine repairs and fuel costs. Now he was apparently a war hero who had helped defeat one of the most feared empires in the galaxy. "What happens now?" he asked. "Do we just go back to our normal lives?" Nari laughed. "What normal lives? The Voss will put bounties on our heads. Every mercenary hunter in 3 sectors will be looking for us." "That is cheerful," Daeho muttered, "but it also means we will never lack for work," she continued. "After today, every species in the galaxy will want to hire us. We just proved that the Voss can be beaten." She stood up and looked toward the stars. "There are other empires out there, other bullies, who think they can conquer whoever they want. The universe is full of people who need protection from things bigger and stronger than them. So we become professional heroes, Deho said. Something like that, Nari replied. The question is whether you want to keep hauling cargo or help us fight the next war. Deho considered the offer he could return to his old life, repairing his ship and going back to moving boxes between planets. It would be safe, predictable, boring, or he could stay with Nari and her mercenary company, using his human unpredictability to fight impossible battles against overwhelming odds. It would be dangerous, exciting, and probably get him killed within a year. You know what the real difference is between humans and every other species? Nari asked when he did not answer right away. What? Everyone else fights to win, she said. Humans fight to save people they have never met. That is why you will probably conquer the galaxy someday, even though you do not want to. Deho looked around at the alien warriors who had accepted him as one of their own. Despite their different species and backgrounds, they all shared the same commitment to protecting the innocent from those who would harm them. The Voss main fleet will eventually come, he said. 10,000 ships, remember. What do we do when they arrive? We find allies, Nari replied. Every species the Voss have threatened, every world they have conquered, will want revenge. We build a coalition, and we teach them to fight like humans. Chaotic, unpredictable, and completely insane. Exactly. Nari smiled. By the time we are finished, the Voss Empire will not know what hit them. Boram approached with a communication device. We are receiving messages from across the galaxy, she reported. Species that have never worked together are asking about forming alliances. Everyone wants to learn how we defeated the Voss. Then we had better start teaching them, Nari said. Deho made his decision. I am in, but I want to keep my cargo ship assuming we can fix it. Why? Because nobody suspects a cargo hauler, he replied. And I have a feeling we are going to need that advantage again. Nari handed him a communication device similar to the one Boram carried. Welcome to the team officially this time. Consider this your first real day as a member of the most dangerous mercenary company in the galaxy. As Deho took the device, he felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. They had won this battle, but the war was just beginning. The Voss would return eventually, and when they did, the galaxy would need to be ready. But for the first time since this whole adventure began, Deho felt confident they could handle whatever came next. Humans might not be the strongest or the smartest species in the universe, but they had something that no amount of technology or firepower could replace. They had the ability to inspire others to be better than they thought possible. So, what is our next mission? He asked. Nari pointed toward a distant star. There is a species called the Corvin being enslaved by something called the Iron Dominion. They sent a message asking for help. How many ships does the Iron Dominion have? About 2,000. Deho laughed despite himself. Well, at least it is not 10,000. That is the spirit. Nari replied. Now let us go teach some more bullies that the galaxy has new protectors. As they walked back toward the camp to begin planning their next impossible mission, Deho realized that his old life really was gone forever. He would never again be just a simple trader moving from one planet to another. Instead, he was something much more important. He was proof that ordinary people could do extraordinary things when they decided to stand up for what was right. The universe was full of empires and dictators who thought they could take whatever they wanted. But now they would have to deal with something they had never faced. Before humans who refused to give up.